This fall is a busy one between travel and various commitments, so I don't have extra time for grocery shopping or to be grinding away in the kitchen. I've been letting Home Chef do the heavy lifting for me. For a limited time, Home Chef is offering my listeners 18 free meals plus free dessert for life. And of course, free shipping on your first box. Go to homechef.com/ratchet. That's homechef.com/ratchet for 18 free meals and free dessert for life. Homechef.com/ratchet. Must be an active subscriber to receive free dessert.
At your job, do you ever have to deal with a nose roller? How about a snub pulley? Well, if you're installing a new conveyor belt system, dealing with the different components can sound like you're speaking a foreign language. Luckily, you've got a team ready to help. Grainger's technical product specialists are fluent in maintenance, repair, and operations. So whenever you want to talk shop, just reach out. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and those who don't identify as either, we're back. You are listening to Ratchet and Respectable. Woo, child. I've been gone for 2 weeks, with the exception of the first 3 days I was gone. I have kept a running list of every major event that has been going on in the States. I've been doing this for the duration of the podcast. Like, there's 10% of my brain, even when I'm not actively recording the podcast, editing the podcast, interviewing someone for the podcast, there's 10% of my brain that is always thinking about the podcast, mostly producing the show, potential topics, potential guests, potential approaches to the topics, because I don't want to just repeat what everyone else is saying. If I don't feel like I have something to add to the conversation, especially if I'm talking about something that's been around for a while, then it's pointless to me to talk about it. I think about ways to arrange the episode, like what's the intro, what's the anchor, things like that. So I keep a running list on my phone. When I'm not doing the podcast twice a week, the list piles up. So it's impossible for me to cover everything that's happened over the last 2 weeks. I'm picking for this episode what I think is the most intriguing, given the timing. Timing is a huge factor for things that I talk about. Things that I'm leaving off of the episode. There's a huge story in France about a man who repeatedly drugged his wife over a 10-year period and had sex with her, raped her, and then invited other men to have sex with her, rape her, while she was incapacitated. She found out this was all going on. She had no memory of it because I want to say he was giving her like 7 to 10 prescription sleeping pills at a time. She had no clue. Her husband is out, I think at like a market, a grocery store or something, and gets caught trying to upskirt women, take pictures up women's skirts. He's arrested, and the police go to his phone looking for the inappropriate pictures that he's been arrested for taking of women. And in his phone, they find all these videos of him having sex with this woman who is clearly not conscious. They're like, who is this woman? And they figure out that it's his wife of 50 years. That story isn't making today's podcast. I'm going to talk about that story. I'm going to dedicate a full episode to that story. Her husband, who's admitted to it, he's justifying it, saying that, there was a type of sex that he wanted to have with his wife and she didn't want to have it. So he started drugging her so he could have it the way that he wanted. And then he started inviting other people in. With these other people, he kept videos and photos in folders on his computer, and he labeled them with the names of the men participating and the dates that the events occurred. So the police went and rounded up all of these men, and now they're on trial. The Cut did a really great, really long summary of it. I highly recommend. And the trial is ongoing, so we have a little time. We're going to do a full episode about this trial. And one of the reasons that we're going to talk about it is because most of the topics that we cover on here, especially when it comes to things about sex, dating, relationships, even when we're talking about like predatory behavior, as Sean Combs and many other celebrity men have been alleged to have committed on women over, I don't know, decades, but the lawsuits have just been coming out in the last few years. There's an Epstein story, there's a Weinstein story, but there's a lot of conversation that can sometimes make this feel like it's a black thing or it's an American thing. The way that some men, not all, but always men, are behaving in such predatory ways towards women, even their wives. Because I think I said that this man and woman were married for 50 years. The documented assaults of his wife begin somewhere like when she's in her, from like her late 50s to late 60s. I think she's like 70, 71 now, and he might be 73, 74. This ain't just quote and unquote young people shit. But I think it's really important to talk about the global phenomenon of men behaving in predatory ways. And at some point, we also need to talk about this 4B movement going on in South Korea. They've actually escalated it to 6B. It's another story that we're not going to get a chance to talk about this episode because there's so much else going on. South Korean women, not all of them, but a good chunk of them, here's in America, even though I'm in South Africa right now, they would call it feminism or anti-man. In South Korea, a portion of women, I don't know the exact numbers, have disengaged essentially with men. They're refusing marriage, they're refusing dating, they're refusing to have children. What's the other B in 4B? Oh, have sex. That's the other one. And it's called 4B because in the language, all of the descriptions of these things start with a B. But they've revved it up. I think it's only patronizing women owned businesses. And then 6B is completely ignoring men socially. So they won't even interact with men online. So whatever their version of Threads is or X, or I think they have TikTok. TikTok's not ours. Whatever social media sites that they're using, women have stopped interacting with men completely. We're not even talking about that. We're not talking also about all these new lawsuits against Diddy. A couple of them are coming from minors. The Shine documentary, it's not coming out until somewhere in November. We'll talk about it when it drops. We're not talking about that because we need to talk about the American election. I'm recording this on Friday, November 1st. It's 12:58 in the afternoon here. The East Coast is not even up yet. I'm 6 hours in the future from the East Coast, 9 from the West. The American election is on Tuesday, same day as our next episode. If you are listening to the sound of my voice, go vote. Ain't nothing I'm saying on this podcast more important than you going to vote. The world is watching. You know it's at stake at this point. It's really like, does America continue on kind of, it's like this global superpower that we've been all this time? Or do we crumble? Is this the end of an empire? Do we turn into Gilead? Like, are we going to be a living version of The Handmaid's Tale? Like, that's what's at stake here. You know what the stakes are at home. I'm on the other side of the world. I'm a 15-hour flight away. And anytime my mom and I go out, yes, she's still here. She'll be here for another couple weeks too. But anytime my mom and I go out and people overhear us speaking or we go to a restaurant, obviously we're engaging with our waiter or other staff that may come by. They hear our accents. They know immediately that we're American. And we went out the other day, cute little lunch place. I've been there a million times. It's one of my faves. Our waiter comes over. He realizes we're American. He asks, how long are you going to be in Cape Town? And making small talk. And I answer him. And he says, you're going to miss your election. You're not voting? Like, this man was incensed, incensed. I was like, no, we've already voted. We did mail-in ballots. Like, of course we voted. And he said, who'd you vote for? Americans don't really ask that question super plain out. I'm not in America. South Africa is very different. But I had no problem telling him. I was like, seriously? And I was like, I voted for Kamala Harris. And he was like, oh, okay. Can I take your order? What happens in America, who we elect as leader, their disposition, their policies have the potential and more than likely do affect what happens in the rest of the world. America's choices impact a global economy. For better or for worse, the choices that we make set trends around the world, and not just social and entertainment, which is a huge impact too, but also political. And more important, I think, to everyone else, financial. The world is depending on us not to fuck up this election, by which I mean not letting Donald Trump get back into office. It's very different watching the elections from abroad as opposed to being home, especially living in DC. A lot of my core friend group is in DC and works in politics or is politics adjacent. So I'm always feeling like in the thick of it. Overseas, I get a filtered version of media. And I'm not speaking to my friends who work in politics as often. So I'm not getting like the behind the scenes of certain decisions that were made. I'm not getting the heads up about things that are coming down the pipeline or seeing the early press releases of things before they become media stories. I'm just getting the information that is big enough to be filtered out to the rest of the world. The things that make it to BBC and Al Jazeera and the news networks and the radio and the social media here. My algorithm is different here than it is at home, even with my VPN on. We look crazy to the rest of the world. Just the idea of Donald Trump, after the way that we've already seen him completely screw up the country the first go round, the first time he was in office, the online tantrums that have got even worse, the constant shenanigans, the overt bigotry. That's what filters out to the rest of the world. And the idea that there's even a potential for him to be the president again, that he even made it as far as being the nominee. And then now they're like, oh, the race is like 50-50. Like, how? How? He looks like a fucking madman. How? The rest of the world is just very, very confused by us. Like, as soon as they hear the accents, everybody wants to talk to me about politics and the election. And I'm like, I voted for Hillary when she was up against Trump. Like, I did my job. And then also, like, the majority of the country voted for Hillary. And then people here are very well informed about the Electoral College and the origins of it as coming from slavery. People here know an incredible amount about the intricacies of our elections and political processes. I don't even think I can tell you the president of South Africa. And that's some shameful shit because I was here during the election. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. This month is all about gratitude, and I can think of one person that we don't get to thank enough: ourselves. It's sometimes hard to remind ourselves that we are trying our best to make sense of everything. And in this crazy world, that isn't easy. Here's a reminder to send some thanks to the people in your life, including yourself. You know that I am a huge advocate of therapy, even for people who don't think they need it. You do, trust me. And for people who aren't in crisis, therapy's not just for crisis. Therapy helps you avoid a crisis. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. I love how easy BetterHelp makes it to get therapy. Let the gratitude flow with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/ratchet today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/ratchet. This fall is a busy one between travel and various commitments, so I don't have extra time for grocery shopping or to be grinding away in the kitchen. I've been letting Home Chef do the heavy lifting for me, so I get to enjoy being out in the beautiful weather and can come home to a quick and delicious meal. Home Chef provides fresh ingredients and chef-designed recipes, conveniently delivered to your doorstep to simplify your cooking experience. Not only is it convenient, but it's economical too. Home Chef customers save an average of $86 per month on groceries. And my favorite thing about Home Chef is it has over 30 options a week and serves a variety of dietary needs, so you don't have to worry about what to make ahead of time. I love that. For a limited time, Home Chef is offering my listeners 18 free meals plus free dessert for life. And of course, free shipping on your first box. Go to homechef.com/ratchet. That's homechef.com/ratchet for 18 free meals and free dessert for life. Homechef.com/ratchet. Must be an active subscriber to receive free dessert. Obviously, I'm voting for Kamala Harris. I'm biased for sure, in my opinion, about her. She had, I think, a little over 100 days to run a campaign for president. after Biden stepped down. And I think she's done an incredible job. Just in this last week, she has this gigantic rally in Houston. Beyonce and Kelly show up. They both make a speech. People keep talking about Beyonce's speech. She's like, I'm not here as a celebrity. I'm here as a mother. Her speech was fine. I think she did a great job. Kelly's speech was actually the one that was like, bring the house down. And I was like, I know Beyonce is the bigger star, but I was like, put some respect on Kelly's name. Somehow, Beyonce and Kelly show up to speak at this Kamala rally in Houston. Online, there becomes a engaging conversation. I don't know if it made it to trending, where people are suspecting that Kelly and Beyonce are having some sort of illicit affair, that their relationship is more than like besties raised as sisters because Kelly wore menswear. Or another just hopping pile of shit conspiracy where people are thinking people really didn't like Kelly's outfit, decide that Beyonce made Kelly wear an ugly outfit so that Beyonce looked better during the appearance. You know what? I love a good conspiracy theory. I love to think about like the subliminals and symbols and messaging. I love sitting around over analyzing shit and pulling things together. But you don't think that sounds crazy? You don't think that maybe Kelly has been wearing a whole bunch of menswear for like the last year or so, that it's kind of just her thing? And so she picked out this suit that it made her happy. And so she put it on and wore it. You don't think that no matter what Kelly puts on, you don't think Beyonce would still be like, fine ass Beyonce? It's Beyonce. Kelly being the baddest bitch in the room also doesn't stop Beyonce from being the baddest bitch in the room. They would just be two bad bitches. I just, I don't get it. I don't get it. I'm like, focus, people, focus, focus. The Obamas showed up for a rally. Michelle Obama, she's completely given up. Like when they go low, we go high. Like, no, no, no. Michelle LaVaughn Robinson Obama from the South Side. She done got her little braided ponytail down to her ass and she liked to whip around. She dragged Trump the other day, dragged him. And it's not the first time. She just dragged him further than she's ever gone before. She might pop up and do it again. The election ain't till Tuesday. We have time. Obama's on the campaign trail, dragging Trump. Also, all up and down my Instagram timeline, they spending good money on ads, asking me for money. Kamala and them just send me emails. Obama makes videos asking me for money. I gave money and I was like, okay, like I'm doing my part to support freedom. I gave money and they just started asking me for more money and apparently put my name on the list of other people who need money because now everybody's emailing me. And I'm like, look, if I give y'all all my money, I'm not going to have money. Who going to pay for these flights? Cardi and Glorilla, they're coming out. They're going to Milwaukee, which I was like, Milwaukee, I guess. They are huge stars. Their fans are not just black people. And wherever Kamala goes, the whole thing is on YouTube with tons of people watching. So it makes sense to get the eyeballs. I read Cardi is not performing. Cardi's actually speaking at the rally. And I was like, okay. Glorilla, she the cutest thing. I gotta listen real hard to understand what she's saying though when she's not rapping. I saw an interview she was doing the other day, and the guy was kind of making fun of her accent a little bit. She from Memphis. Have I been to Memphis? I've been to Nashville. I don't know if I've been to Memphis. But do they all speak like that, or that's just her? I love her. I'm not making no fun of Glorilla. My whole 40 and up crew in real life and my friends in my head online, everybody is listening to her album. It has respectable black women over 40 in a chokehold right now. Good for her. I hope she gets good numbers. By the next time we speak, I would have listened to the album. I haven't been walking the waterfront like I usually do. That's usually when I listen to most music. At least when I'm traveling. When I'm home, it's like listening in the car. That's my bad. J-Lo is also showing up for a rally I read. She, I know why she's showing up. And we're going to talk about I have it written down as the Puerto Rico fiasco. Puerto Rico didn't do anything. Puerto Rico was sitting around minding its business and caught strays at Trump's Nazi rally at MSG. We'll talk about that in 2 seconds. But Jennifer Lopez, who we could do a whole episode on Jennifer Lopez right now. I know why she's coming out to speak, and I'm glad that she's throwing her celebrity and social influence behind Kamala Harris, especially after Puerto Ricans and the island of Puerto Rico, like literally the island, like the land was dragged the way it was. Like, I know why she's showing up. Jennifer Lopez is in a really interesting place in terms of her fame right now. She's still bona fide famous. She's still bona fide A-list. But for whatever reason, the public has turned on her. I think she's oversaturated. I think she would be best served by just sitting down for a minute. Celebrity, fame, likability works in cycles. The longer you are famous, the more intense the swings of likability and dislikability can become. Very few people can skirt it. Jennifer is in a not liked phase and she keeps pushing out product or pushing herself in front of us. It's sort of like a Jennifer Holiday, like, and you, and you, and you're gonna love me. They're not. People need a break from you. It gives them time to miss you and then come out with a good project and you can like be in good graces again. She's decided to endorse Kamala. I don't know if she had done so before the MSG Nazi rally, but now she's showing up at a rally. This is the first time she's done that for sure. Try to get as many of her fellow Puerto Ricans and perhaps more Latinos as well to embrace and vote for Kamala Harris. They pulling out all the stops. Kamala Harris, I wrote a review about her appearance, her rally in DC. Closing arguments is what she called it. They were expecting 20,000. Allegedly, the numbers were 75,000. I stayed up until 1:30 in the morning to watch it. I thought she did a great job. She's been running this campaign for around the last 100 days, and now she's making her closing argument. I've put out all the evidence. I've told you who I am and what I'm here to do, putting it together in a nice bow. And I'm standing in front of you, looking and sounding presidential and summarizing it all for you so that you can make an easy decision next week about whether you want me or you want, the fascist and the bigot and the predator and the felon as your future leader of the United States. Here you go. But I thought she looked great. I thought she sounded great. I thought the setting was great. Like, she looked presidential. Like, I would be happy to have her as my leader. But what really did it for me was when the camera would pan to the crowds and seeing all those people. And I got my first inklings of, I feel kind of, I'm not fully hopeful yet. I don't think after Hillary versus Trump, I could ever, at least when it comes to politics, women in politics in particular, I don't think I'll ever be able to like just fully lean myself over into like 100% hope. But like, I got an inkling, I got a stirring. Like, I was like, maybe possibly like we could really pull this off. Like, I've always wanted Kamala to win. Like, after maybe the first 2 weeks when Joe pulled back, I felt like that was just a huge whiplash. Once my mind got wrapped around that, I've been Team Kamala the whole time. I've wanted her to win, but the feeling of hope is different than the feeling of want. I feel hopeful a little bit, and I'm scared of that feeling. Just remember waking up the morning after the HRC Trump election. It took forever for Hillary to concede for obvious reasons. I'd be like, just wait, what? But when they finally were like, it's been called for Trump, like Donald Trump is the next president of the United States, like the feeling of impending doom and then what we lived through. And there's so much, but I think the worst of it was COVID and then January 6th, the feeling of having to go through that again, being hopeful that that doesn't happen. And then that hope being dashed and knowing that whatever comes next, if Trump gets into office, will be worse than COVID, will be worse than January 6th. I don't even live in America most of the time, and I can't take that shit. Inkling of hope. Inkling of hope. Obama would say something like, don't hope, vote. I did. I done voted. I done sent money. I done told other people to vote. I'm not at 100%. I'm doing this podcast because the election is coming up on Tuesday. I am out here trying to do my part. Vote, goddammit, vote. Listen up, renters. Ever feel like you're stuck in this loop of rent payments, just watching your money vanish into thin air? It's time to turn that rent game around and start earning some serious rewards. That's where Built Rewards comes in. Okay, real talk. We've all been there, feeling like we're burning cash with those rent checks. It's frustrating, right? But here's the deal. Built Rewards has figured out a way to make rent more rewarding. Say goodbye to the money bonfire and hello to a renter's revolution with Built. Built is breaking ground as a neighborhood rewards program that hooks you up with points on your rent. Every month, pay your rent and watch the Built points roll in. Use points to jet off on a dream vacation or put your points towards a flight or hotel stay with more than 500 airlines and 700,000 hotels and properties. You can also use your points to book fitness studio classes or redeem them toward a future rent payment. They're designed to meet your lifestyle. And my favorite part, pay rent hassle-free through the Built Rewards app. Your rent game just got a major upgrade. Built points have been consistently ranked the highest value point currency by the Points Guy and Bankrate. I love how Built makes it rewarding to pay your rent. Earn points by paying rent right now when you go to joinbuilt.com/ratchet. That's JOINBILT.com/ratchet. Make sure to use our URL so they know we sent you. Join built.com/ratchet to start earning points with your rent payments today. You may have heard of Lumi Whole Body Deodorant for pits, privates, and beyond. But did you know they just dropped their first whole body deo spray? It's the same outrageous 72-hour control that's earned them 300,000 five-star reviews, but in a brand new, easy to apply spray. Here's 3 more cool things about it. Like all of Lumi's best-selling deos, the spray is powered by innovative pH-optimized technology that stops odor before it starts, rather than simply covering odor up with fragrance. Its water-based formula contains way less alcohol than the competition. They use enough for a quick dry, and that's it. Which is why in clinical trials, 0 participants experienced any burning or irritation. The canister is designed for effortless 360-degree application, meaning you can turn it upside down to spray those hard-to-reach spots below the belt. I love Lumi deodorant. I only use it for pits, and it comes in my favorite scents. So there's clean tangerine, lavender sage, which is my personal favorite, and toasted coconut. Lumi Starter Pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, like mini body wash and deodorant wipes, and free shipping. As a special offer for listeners, new customers get 15% off all Lumi products with our exclusive code. And if you combine the 15% off with the already discounted starter pack, that equals over 40% off their starter pack. Use code RATCHET15 for 15% off your first purchase at lumideodorant.com. That's code RATCHET15 at LUMEDEODORANT.com. Trump does this rally at MSG, Madison Square Garden, the middle of New York City. And MSG is used for many things. All the big major sporting and entertainment events in New York City happen at MSG. It has many, many uses. One of its previous uses was also for literally a Nazi rally back in 1939. So Trump does this rally in New York City. It is the most diverse city in America, but it is still in America. There's only so much you can do to combat the racism. Trump does this rally. Trump books this comedian. Trump team, whatever. Trump was like, oh, I didn't know he was being booked. Like, how am I supposed to know all the speakers? Like, nigga, you want to be the president of the United States. You can't even run your campaign? How you going to run a country? You did it before, but it was a shit show then. You ain't got no better in the last 4 years. He books this comedian for this rally. There were jokes about Black people eating watermelon. Was it carving watermelon instead of pumpkins for Halloween? Was that the joke? Stuff about Puerto Ricans, the island being trashed, the stuff about, was it Puerto Ricans specifically or was it Latinos in general not knowing how to pull out? He literally gets on stage at this Trump rally that's being broadcast. It's not like it's a closed set and they took all the phones. Like, this is being broadcast around the world and makes these like incredibly racist, quote and unquote, jokes. The shit ain't funny. I'm looking this up right now. Just a correction real quick. Tony Hinchcliffe, his podcast is called Kill Tony. I thought he went by Kill Tony as his stage name. Tony Hinchcliffe. Most publications aren't even reporting on the full set of jokes because what he said was so offensive. I watched a clip of it the morning after it happened. And I have a foul mouth. I grew up on Eddie Murphy and Martin Lawrence and Bernie Mac. Def Comedy Jam. Oh my God. I used to sneak downstairs after my parents went to sleep and watch Def Comedy Jam on HBO when I was in, I don't know, junior high school. I am no shrinking violet when it comes to inappropriate jokes or harsh language or, shit that is beyond the pale. Like I kind of love that shit. But I watched the clip of Tony Hinchcliffe's performance and I was like, oh, like I was literally in here gasping for whatever reason. I've been rolling this around in my head and I really can't quite come to a suitable reason for it. The joke about Puerto Rico being a floating island of trash is the joke that people really attach to and go crazy about. Jennifer Lopez speaks out. Bad Bunny, who is the biggest Puerto Rican artist, I think, ever, but also currently in existence, speaks out against it. Tons of Puerto Rican artists in quick succession denounced Trump, denounced the jokes, endorsed Kamala Harris. And I'm like, it took this for y'all to get activated, but okay, whatever it takes, like at least it's before the election. I don't know why everyone particularly latched on to that one. Like it's bad, full stop. I'm not trying to pretend in any way that it isn't. It is level 10 bad, full stop. Additionally, talk about black folks and watermelons. It's old hat. White folks been making those jokes since the 1800s. I was like, you bring a minstrel show type shit back? Yeah. But I feel like black people are so disrespected all the time that I feel like making jokes about black people and watermelon, it's like, well, you've heard so much worse. So it's like, do you really get mad about this? Because the bar for these things is in hell. It's not just on the floor. It's all the way in hell. And I think kind of like as black people, you're like, well, no one got shot. No one got kneeled on. Nobody's dead. So like, are we really going to exert the energy on this? And maybe I'm thinking too much about the Puerto Rican reaction. Maybe I'm also thinking about like just the media reaction too. You have these global Puerto Rican superstars that immediately speak out. And I think that's probably what caught the media attention. Black folks, we just, it sounds real bad, but black folks getting shitted on is kind of like a 40-degree day. You don't get excited. You don't go barbecue. You don't complain about the weather. It's just, it's a 40-degree day. Everyone focused on the Puerto Rican joke. And the Latino joke and the Palestinians throwing rock jokes, I was like, that's racist. That's really racist. Nobody really latched on to that. I mean, the Palestinians got other shit going on. They got like literal war. Their homeland is destroyed and millions of people are dead. I see why they didn't speak up the same way. I feel like the media should have covered it the same way, like given, the whole war and whatnot. And Trump, of course, as I mentioned earlier, has been like, I didn't even know it was going to happen. I didn't know what was going on. Like, I'm like, yeah, no. Well, that's not an excuse. If nothing else, he was telling the jokes from a teleprompter. Like the jokes were reviewed beforehand and somebody was like, yeah, take this part out, but like everything else is cool. Like you and your team are trash. Trash. Speaking of trash people, was it after the Trump rally or before? So much shit has happened. Looking at my notes, it's listed afterward, but that means nothing. Sometimes I just be typing, but it's not always in order. CNN, Sister Abby. I love me some Abby on TV and in real life. Folks always be acting up on Abby's show too. They really be trying her. I'm like, yo, stop. But the other day on Abby's show, they have a round table. One of the people on the panel is a political commentator. I'm reading this on HuffPo, Mehdi Hassan. And he is a British American journalist. He is Indian. Also on the panel is a man, Ryan Gerdusky. I believe I read he was Italian. So they're on the panel and clip has been circulating. Hassan says something like, I hope you're not calling me anti-Semitic. The other guy, Ryan, says, no, I didn't say that. And then Hassan says, well, I'd be used to it because I'm pro-Palestine. To which the other guy immediately quips. He's sharp. He says, well, I hope your beeper doesn't go off. Nigga, what? The beeper thing, was it Israel implanted some sort of explosive device in the beepers of suspected terrorists living in Lebanon? 37 people are killed and thousands of people are injured. And Hassan immediately picks up on what he means. And he was like, did you just wish like I would die? Did you just wish like that I would be killed? Like, and then the panel goes crazy. Everyone's like all talking over each other. And they're getting on Gurdusky for what he said because, like, nigga, you can't say that shit to people. People say shit like that to people online. In real life, talking like that gets you punched in the face. And honestly, Hassan a better man than me. If he had picked up something and thrown it across the table at him, like picked up the table, I would have understood. I'm not saying it would be right. I'm saying it wouldn't have been wrong, and the nigga had it coming. CNN goes to commercial break, and when Abby comes back, she has to address like what just, went crazy on her show. She was like, what just happened on the show is beyond my principles. It's not okay with me. It's not okay to do on my show. CNN does not condone this kind of rhetoric, this kind of behavior, this kind of talk. She says that Gurdusky has been removed from the panel. Mehdi Hassan just left on his own, which I completely understand. The HuffPo article that I'm reading from, he says that he was, quote, the most stunned he's ever been in his life. He says, never in my 25 years as a journalist and 15 years of doing live TV have I been so stunned by what was said to me that I had to walk off set in the middle of a live show as I did Monday night on CNN. So yes, confirmation. It was after the Trump rally. He goes on to say he was gobsmacked. Hassan goes on to say of Gurdusky's remark that it was a clear racist attack. He says when he sees a Muslim in front of him, he sees Hamas. The line about the beeper, he says, quote, it's a line that wasn't a joke and that he almost certainly came prepared with, thinking he could get away with it on live national television. Yeah. Yeah, he said it. And I mean, and for the most part, got away with it. I don't think he feels any kind of way about being kicked off the show. And then later, CNN announced that he's banned from CNN airwaves. I don't think he gives two shits one way or another. Like the type of person that would say that to somebody else, like, you don't give a fuck. He fucked around. He didn't really find out though. Like, I don't think him getting kicked off the show and CNN banning him from the airwaves is enough. He really should have got punched in his face. Like this, he needed his find out. He likes to fuck around. He didn't really find out, which means he's going to do this shit again. He thinks it's cute. There's no real consequence for him. He's running around the internet downplaying it, saying it wasn't that serious. Did he also say it was a joke? His response to all of this, particularly to being kicked off the show and banned from CNN, he says, you can stay on CNN if you falsely call every Republican a Nazi. Don't do Nazi shit and people won't call you a Nazi. He's referring to people's response to the Trump rally. He posted this on Twitter and he continues. He says, apparently you can't go on CNN if you make a joke. That's what his version of saying, like, I hope your beeper doesn't go off. It was a joke. He says, I'm glad America gets to see what CNN stands for. America saw what you stand for, sir. Like, you wish the man would die on national television. Like, you are a commentator on CNN. Like, you don't like somebody's arguments, then, like, attack their argument. Wishing they would die and then be like, oh, it was a joke. Nigga, no, it wasn't. And when you get punched in the face, it'll be a joke, too. Laugh about that shit. This is what political discourses will come in a country. We look crazy. Not just look crazy. We are crazy. All of this is fucking insane.
Welcome to Monet Talks with me, your girl Monet Exchange, a weekly podcast where the only thing hotter than the tea is our topics, darling. Every single Thursday, we'll be bringing you candid interviews, fun segments, and games featuring a dazzling array of guests, including fellow queens, other celebrities, pop culture icons, friends, and maybe even an ex-boyfriend or four.
You want to hear something horrible?
Tell me.
I was outed.
Outed?
Yeah.
Say their name.
I think I found sobriety through my fans.
That's beautiful, bitch.
I love those little whores.
I'm normally not this nasty.
I bring it out of everyone. That's the tea. To watch the podcast in studio, see exclusive content, and get a glimpse of what goes on behind the scenes, head over to youtube.com/@MonetExchangeOfficial and tell all your friends you can listen to Monet Talks completely free on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else you get your podcasts. Period.
Kamala Harris said that she worked at McDonald's for the summer after her freshman year of college. Trump has decided that this is a bold-faced lie, that there's no possible way that Kamala Harris could have worked at McDonald's. So he wanted to highlight the issue about her lying about McDonald's. And then he also wanted to go work at McDonald's for a day to prove to people that he is not above blue collar work, but then also that he's the only person running in the campaign that actually worked at McDonald's. I think that's the logic behind it. Okay. Shit like this works when you're like, remember Paris Hilton and Nicole Richie? There are two very rich girls, Nicole Richie obviously being Lionel's daughter, and then Paris Hilton, like I think her grandfather started Hilton Hotels. Like, she's an heiress, right? Her and Nicole Richie had this show, I'm sure you remember it, years ago. I mean, like 15 years ago, where like these two rich girls go work on a farm or they go work in fast food or they do like real like middle class or blue collar shit and they act. It didn't seem like an act at the time, but later, since then, they've been like, yeah, we were acting. We're just putting on for the cameras. But they act like, they're just like these clueless girls from Beverly Hills in these like meager conditions. And they're just like so confused by everything. And they make fun of everything. And everything's just one big fucking joke. Somebody like Trump, whose father gave him like millions and millions. Was it tens of millions? Was it 100 million? He squandered all of it. He comes from long money. He's been some version of rich or pretending to be rich or floating credit, whatever it is, for scamming, because that's what you call it when black folks in Atlanta do it. Scamming his entire life. He's a former sitting president of the United States. Like him behaving like Paris Hilton and Nicole Richie on a fucking reality show and going and closing down a McDonald's and like pretending to serve customers fries and like, what the fuck are you doing? This isn't like fucking Bravo. This isn't like fucking The Bachelor. It's a presidential fucking campaign. And yet, he goes and finds this MAGA supporter who owns a McDonald's. He lets Trump come in. They shut down McDonald's for the day. Trump was like, yeah. Like, bring the people in and we're going to serve them the food and we're going to do like the photo ops and the whole 9 yards, blah, blah, blah. He ain't pay that nigga. He ain't pay him. That nigga ain't pay that nigga. Like, what? Yeah. Yeah. He still ain't paying his goddamn debts. And I read last night. Was it last night? It was last. He's now suing CBS for $10 billion. 10 billion with a B. This man, and I'm being generous. I'm being generous in calling him a man. This man is suing CBS because Kamala Harris did an interview with CBS that actually came across really well. And Trump is saying because it came across well, that it must have been heavily edited because there's no possible way that Kamala Harris is smart enough to do a good interview. So they must have asked her questions that were deleted from the broadcast. They must have edited the interview. That's the only way that she could possibly come across as competent. You're talking about a woman who has a law degree, who is the Attorney General of California, who is a sitting U.S. Senator for 4 years, who has degrees from Howard University and UC Law. You don't think that she can put together a competent sentence in an interview? What? It's so fucking racist. It's so unbelievably racist. It's like she's black and she's a woman. There's no possible way that she could be this smart. You must have doctored the interview. And now I'm going to sue your network for campaign interference. He not going to get that money. He don't even think he going to get that money. He need that money because all them people are suing him. But he don't even want that money. It's solely to bring attention to the idea that the interview was doctored because he's been saying it before he even brought the lawsuit. This election is so. I remember when Biden stepped down and Kamala essentially replaced him. And people were like, oh, it's going to be so bad. It's going to be so bad. It's going to be so bad. And I was like, it was bad with Hillary. It was bad when Kamala was actually running for president the first time before she went in as Joe's VP. It was bad. I'm like, I know it's going to get worse, but how bad can it get? My God. My God. You have to tell someone to cut a joke about calling the sitting vice president of the United States a cunt. Suing a TV network just to make the point there's no possible way she could be this articulate. Same Trump rally. I think it was Hulk Hogan who talked about the pimps behind Kamala Harris, not so subtly implying that she's a prostitute or a whore. Really? 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 It's so bad. Do we need to talk about Kamala Harris and Joe Rogan? I think that story has come to an end. I think that interview is more than likely off the table at this point. Joe Rogan has the number one podcast on Spotify. Kamala Harris and Joe Rogan were wanting to do an interview. I think it was mutual. It has not come to fruition at this time because Joe Rogan wanted Kamala Harris in the final week of her campaign. Kamala Harris, the same one, the one that's the sitting vice president, the one that is running for president of the United States. He wanted her to take literally a day out of her campaign to fly down to Texas, where his studio is, where he records his podcast, and record with him for 3 hours, for 180 minutes. I ain't got that kind of time in my life. I don't have a full-time job. Where are people finding 3 hours to sit down? I understand that he has 3 hours because it's his podcast. That's his full-time job. They pay him a shit ton of money. There was $100 million contract at one point, and I think he renewed for more than that. That's not the point. The point is he wanted Kamala Harris to come sit with him for 3 hours, and she was like, no. Her counter was, why don't you come to me where I am, and then we can sit down for an hour. She gave an hour to Shannon Sharp. She gave an hour, I think somewhere around there. Call Her Daddy. I think that's the number 2 podcast on Spotify. And Kamala Harris's core demographic, I would guess, is women, which I would go ahead and guess is the primary demographic for Call Her Daddy. That makes sense. Joe Rogan's audience, I would imagine they're mostly MAGA, and I would imagine Joe Rogan is too. Not to say that she shouldn't have a conversation with him. Like, she's been very clear that if you elect me to president of the United States, I will govern everyone. I will look out for everyone, even for the people that disagree with me. In contrast to Trump, who wants to like seek revenge on everyone who's spoken against him. Not the point. Not the point. She's been doing the podcast circuit. While I'm mentioning this, she also did All the Smoke. What's the guy I don't like, who's actually been a whole lot better than he used to be? I feel like he may be growing in the right direction. And then what's the other podcast? The one that has the guy, he was talking about he and his wife like to act like a dirty cat. I think he likes to act like the dirty cat. The wife don't act like the cat. She plays another role. I don't remember what her role is, but his podcast, Kamala Harris went over there too, and they did a good job. All the Smoke, Steven Jackson and Matt Barnes, they did a good job. You know how I felt about Steven Jackson and how I've dragged him multiple times with glee and joy and pleasure, and I will not hesitate to do so again. Steven seems to be trying to do better. I'm going to acknowledge it, but also not reserve that I may drag him again in the future. This is me extending what I can of an olive branch. Like, I offer you a leaf, one leaf. But the vice president has been very much doing the podcast circuit. Joe Rogan wanting 3 hours from her is fucking ridiculous. Her offering an hour is plentiful. I remember, because I was still working in magazine when Obama was running for president the first go round. I think it's public knowledge. He shot the cover of Vibe. He literally gave them 15 minutes for a cover shoot. Because he was like, I want to do it. I want to talk to you. Like, this is the audience I want to reach. But like, you do realize, like, I'm running for president right now. Like, work with me. And they were like, we got you, bro. That obviously wasn't podcast culture back then. But offering people an hour to sit down while you're the sitting vice president of the United States, who's also campaigning to be president, is gracious. An ask of 3 hours, given these circumstances, is completely fucking insane. Barack Obama's out of office. He's retired. He may have 3 hours to give you. He pops up and does some work here and there, but he also spends a lot of time on the golf course. He likes to vacation. Michelle Obama, retired people. Those are the only people I know that got 3 hours of free time. Unemployed people, they looking for work. We're driving Uber, DoorDash. I would actually be mad if the sitting vice president of the United States, who is also campaigning for president of the United States, found 3 hours in her day. I'm like, man, the country don't need no kind of running. You ain't got nothing better to do. Joe don't need help with anything. You are receiving a salary. You do have work to do. Don't you think you should be doing that instead of sitting down talking to Joe Rogan for 3 hours? I'll give you an hour. 3? Nigga. And that's me talking about Joe, not Kamala. They couldn't come, to my knowledge, to an agreement. Joe Rogan's response to, I can't give you 3, but I can give you 1 if you come meet me, should have been, meet you where and can you do 90? Meet the lady in the middle. But I was like, the audacity of you, the absolute audacity of you. And then for this all to become public, because I don't think Kamala Harris is the one that made it public. I think it's Joe Rogan's people like to complain as if like it's a problem that she won't make time for you. Sir, I think podcasting is really important. I put a lot of hard work into my podcast. It's not number one in the country, but it is in the top 200, occasionally in the top 100. Episode by episode, it can get into the top 50. Podcasts are important, full stop. How dare you think your podcast is so important that you can summon the sitting vice president of the United States in the last week of her campaign to come sit down and talk to you for 3 hours. And when she says no, your little feelings are so hurt, you decide to go blast it. Get some perspective. This whole thing makes the news cycle. Joe Rogan is branded rightfully as a diva. I'm reading this on the Daily Beast. He explained that he was worried if he traveled to Kamala Harris, too much of the interview would be on her terms. And he said that he's thinking about Kamala Harris did an interview on Fox News, and the interviewer claimed that Harris aides signaled to him to end his contentious interview. He said, if I go somewhere, then there's going to be other people in the room, and they want to control a lot of things. That's a distraction. My whole goal with her and with him being Donald Trump, because he also interviewed him, he says, is just talk. Just have a conversation like a human being. You find out things about people. You get a sense of them at least. That was it. I don't give a fuck what we talk about. I really don't. I just want to talk to you. Who the fuck are you? When Trump did his interview with Rogan, it came up whether Kamala Harris would ever do it. And Trump told Rogan, quote, she's not going to do it. He added, I hope she does, because it would be a mess. She would be laying on the floor, comatose. She'd be saying, call the medics. Rogan responded, I think we'd have a fine conversation. I just try to have a conversation with her and hopefully get to know her as a human being. Sir, you should have tried that earlier in the campaign cycle. It was only 100 days. But like, come on. The final week of the election, 3 hours for a person with a job? Bruh. This is the last episode that drops before Election Day. You ain't got nothing better to do but vote. It's the first of the month. Pay your rent and vote. I have a list of other things I thought we'd be able to get to today. Ray J and Diddy's kids, apparently there was some sort of confrontation outside a Halloween party. Chris Brown had to break it up. Ray J speaking on it now. We don't have time for that today. Tyler Perry's series, Beauty in Black. I was stuck in the house for a couple days, so I binged that over 2 days. Chaotic, but also addictive. I could not look away. Even after the Machine Guns came out, like I was like, nigga, what? I watched Meg's documentary last night. I talked a little bit about it on my socials. I'll go into it a little more on a further episode. We have voting to do. Everything entertainment related is just not as important. Nick Cannon on Mariah. Oh, I got thoughts. Cousin Kiki Palmer. She spoke to People magazine. She has a book coming out where she talks about everything, including that big fiasco with her child's father over a whole bunch of stuff. Her dress at an Usher concert, and then there was, intimate partner violence caught on camera and a dispute over custody of their kid. Like, that was a hot mess. But she's talking about it. And then Rel and Ocho Cinco. I watched the clips of Nightcap with Shannon Sharp and Ocho Cinco. That's the only reason I know about Rel. Apparently she's in real estate. She does a ton of other stuff. But they broke up. It seems she broke up with him. He's also said that she blocked him. And he and Rel have a child together too. Their child is around 2. But Ocho has 8 kids with 7 women. That's a lot of kids. Like, you don't believe in no kind of condoms and no kind of pulling out, huh? We'll talk about that in a future episode. Lots of ground to cover, but no ground more important than voting. Go vote. Go vote. Go vote. We'll be back on Tuesday. Bye.